Hello, welcome to Time Flies. I'm here with James Delingpole, author of Watermelons, How Environmentalists Are Killing the Planet, Destroying the Economy and Stealing Your Children's Future. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the split in the climate change debate, how it's split ideologically, how warmists tend to come from the left and sceptics tend to come from the right. Why do you think it's split like that?
Because ultimately this debate is not about science, it is about politics, and always has been about politics. It is to do with, on the one hand, division of the earth, which is that if you leave people to their own devices to get on with their lives without big government stepping in to tax and regulate them, they will tend to do the right thing, the economy will grow, people will live happily ever after. There is another side, another view of the world, which is that we are all so evil and destructive and wrong that the only way we can save Mother Gaia is for unelected bureaucrats and technocrats from the United Nations, experts, to step in and tell us how to live our lives. It's about control, it's about regulation, all the things that one traditionally associates with the left, with authoritarian regimes.
So sounds like you have quite an optimistic view of human nature. Would you say that's true?
I think I do, yeah, I do. And if you look at history, you look at the times when civilizations have thrived, it tends to be when free markets have been allowed to flourish. You know, look at Britain has probably never been greater than it was during Victorian times, when the tax rate was about 10%. You know, there were not organisations like Greenpeace telling us how to live our lives. There wasn't big government stepping in at every turn. This is what happens, that prosperity is good for everyone.
Yeah, so you say it's not really about science, the
Yeah.
debate, but you must have some sort of relationship with science, and what is that relationship?
Absolutely. One of the great joys of writing Watermelons was getting to know geologists, rocket scientists, atmospheric physicists, proper scientists who've dedicated their lives to particular areas of learning. And what's depressing is seeing how these people have been marginalised by a vindictive scientific establishment. You know, the science establishment, like the Royal Society, like the National Academy of Sciences, like NASA even, these institutions have been taken over by scientists of a very particular political bent. They almost don't deserve the title scientists. They're much more like political activists.
So you yourself are not a trained scientist.
Yeah, absolutely
And you talk about it in the book, how people use that as an argument against you, why they shouldn't trust your argument.
Yeah.
So why should people trust you?
Because ultimately science is not a numbers game. There was a famous story about Einstein. When Hitler commissioned a book called 100 Scientists Against Einstein, Einstein replied, "Why need 100? If I were wrong, one scientist would have done." This is how science works. It's not through so-called consensus. It is about people discovering new things and effecting what is called a paradigm shift. So, for example, up until the 1980s, everyone knew that stomach ulcers were caused by stress, until two Australian scientists posited the theory that maybe stomach ulcers were caused by something else. Maybe they were caused by a bacterium. As it turned out, this proved to be correct, and the old thinking was wrong. You don't need to be a scientist to understand this thing.
So the thing you're most known for is ClimateGate.
Yeah.
And do you want to win the argument on climate change? Because if climate change wasn't here, it wasn't an issue anymore, what would be your thing? It's sort of made you, really, hasn't it?
Oh, I'm happy to move on. You know, it was a happy and interesting interlude in my career. You know, I have become this notorious figure with hatchet jobs conducted against me. Well, I think you have to accept that it is part of your branding. I don't like my daughter coming home from school and saying, "Daddy, why do people want to punch your face in?" You know, she's seen on YouTube somebody written, "I want to punch Delingpole's face in." I get lots of hate mail. But you see, people wouldn't feel that strongly about you if you weren't standing up for something. You know, when you're taking flack, it means you're over the target.
So what would you stand up for instead if it wasn't climate change?
I see the climate change issue as, if you like, a proxy war being fought by the left in the same way that, say, in the 1970s, Angola was the field for a proxy war fought by the Russians using Cuban troops to fight the West. In the same way, climate change is just an excuse for a much bigger campaign by the left to ultimately to create a new world order.
Yeah, I think our time's up. So the last thing I have to ask you is just to fill in the gap. Time flies when?
When you're enjoying yourself.
When you're enjoying yourself, in what way?
It could be anything. It could be taking drugs, having sex, or being with your kids.
Well, there we go. That's a nice all-rounder.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right.